Well, good afternoon and welcome to the SiGNAL broadcast.
This is episode 3 of our broadcast, and it's great that you're joining us today. The theme for the month is business for good, and we have a really great guest to share his story with us. Who have we got today, Emma?
Well, we have a guy called Oz Austwick. He's a local business owner, and his business is called the Ethical Growth Marketing Agency. So given that our theme was business for good, and the questions that we're going to be asking are around, can small businesses afford to be ethical? We thought it would be great to get Oz in and talk to us about why he named his company the Ethical Growth Marketing Company and what that means to him and what that means to his customers.
And as we do on every episode of the SiGNAL broadcasting, is we invite people of the community, businesses, local businesses, people in positions of power, come along and talk to us about our different theme of the month. So we're really excited today to bring Oz into the room. Come on in, Oz, and let's get chatting.
There he is.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to the SiGNAL broadcast, episode 3.
Thanks very much for having me.
Lovely to have you here. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. Yeah.
Great. Well,
So,
as we said, business for good, we're going to just go through some questions and find out a little bit about you. There'll be no uncomfortable questions. Don't worry, Oz, we're going to dig a bit deep and we're going to find out. But this is just to share with our community about small businesses and different aspects of different themes that we do throughout the year. So, yeah, we're really excited to be asking you some questions.
Awesome.
Right, Emma, start the show. Let's go.
Well, I think we kick off with what I was talking about in the introduction, which is that it's interesting that you chose to name your marketing agency the Ethical Growth Marketing Agency. And I think we just wanted to pull that out a little bit and talk about why you chose to do that and what it means to you.
Okay, it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, if I'm being completely honest, when I started the business, I didn't call it that. We are officially, if you go to Companies House and check, we are officially Client Magnet Limited. But it became very apparent very early on that what I was talking about was ethical growth marketing. I registered the domain name ethicalgrowth.marketing, and all kind of the whole ethos of the company was to be ethical and to use that as a foundation for what we do and to help other companies that are trying to make the world a better place be more successful. So very quickly, we made a decision to rebrand and just be Ethical Growth Marketing. So we now fully trade as Ethical Growth Marketing or the Ethical Growth Marketing Agency. And it's what we do. So it kind of seemed stupid not to make that kind of obvious from the beginning. If you see the company name, you kind of understand straight away where I'm coming from, or at least that's the hope.
Can I dig a bit deeper with you there, Oz? Where does that passion come from? Where does that come from within you?
Well, I mean, I've done a lot of jobs over the years. I've done a lot of things. I get relatively bored relatively quickly with jobs. So about every 4 or 5 years, I just have a complete change. Sometimes it's longer than that. Sometimes it's not so long. I was a nurse for 10 years. I worked in accident and emergency, moved into trauma and orthopedics. And I've kind of always had this desire in what I do to try and improve the world. And I if I'm being honest, I don't really understand people that don't feel that way, because it's the only one we've got, and it kind of makes sense to try and improve it. And when I was made redundant in 2019, I was working in-house for a cloud consultancy as their marketing manager. And I realized that I wanted to try and do something that had a bit of an impact on the world around me. And I sat and thought for a little while, and I realized that I probably have more of an impact using the things that I could do, so videography and content writing and SEO, to help other people that were already trying to make the world a better place, and help them make a bigger splash, rather than me just picking a lane and sticking to it. And hopefully that would appeal to my, the word flighty is probably not the nicest word, but it's probably true. You know, I focus very much on a thing, and then I move to another. So being able to work for different clients that are doing different things and always get that feeling that you are making the world a better place really helps me stay focused in what I do.
That means that your title, the name of your company is about attracting the right sort of client, and that therefore you would perhaps not choose a client who you felt was being environmentally wasteful or, you know,
Yes.
exploitative in any way?
Yes, absolutely. We are, and I always have been very careful in who I'm willing to work with. It's far easier to say who we won't work with than it is that who we will. I mean, I've purposefully, deliberately kept that quite vague. There are some marketing agencies out there that have a real focus on environmental sustainability, and that's hugely admirable. Yeah. But I feel that that's not really who I am. That's very important, don't get me wrong. And we've worked with some sustainability charities and some environmental charities. That's great. But I think there's a lot more out there that we can do to help. So, for example, we work with the London Irish Foundation. They do a lot of work with the homeless and with disadvantaged children, that sort of thing. And if I was focused entirely on one thing, I wouldn't get to do that too. Yeah. So from my perspective, as long as somebody's trying to make the world a better place in one way or another, great. If Imperial Tobacco came knocking, I'd probably say no. I have issues with the beauty industry, you know, an industry that's focused on the premise of telling people that they're not quite good enough. Yeah, doesn't really fit well with me. So
is there an element of potential conversion though? I mean, I get the tobaccos and maybe the beauty, but people that are not quite doing it, is there an element of you delivering your message and possibly awareness more than anything else?
Yes, absolutely. And if through doing what I do, I can encourage people to try and be a little bit better and have reduced their impact on the world, brilliant. Then that's a win too. I think that most of the time people don't realize quite how much they're already doing. And a lot of the time people are doing all sorts of things that they just think are perfectly ordinary. And they don't realize that in the wider business world, what they're doing is actually a little bit special, a little bit different.
Can you give any, sorry to jump in, can you give any examples of that? Because often people say, I really want to, you know, be more sustainable. I want to be more ethical. What can I do? I mean, literally, what can I do? So, you know, have you got any quick wins that people think, actually, I'm almost doing that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the very first client I signed as an agency founder was a business based in Guildford. They were part of a network of translation agencies, lovely people. And what they'd done was they'd spent a year or so trying to streamline their processes to make them more efficient. And in doing so, had actually had a massive impact on the company's sustainability. Because what they used to do was everything was printed out. They'd get an article, say, in German, and they'd print it out, and they'd go through, and they'd make notes on it, and they'd send that across to the project manager, who would get a translator to go through it, and then they'd retype it and print it out. And they had vast amounts of paper, at every step, and they made the whole process paperless. Yeah. And they did that firstly to reduce their own costs, and secondly because it made things a little bit faster and easier for them. But they didn't realize that in actual fact that they suddenly had a massive impact on the environment as well. They were getting through boxes and boxes of paper every week, and suddenly they didn't have to do that. And the bonus for them was that when COVID hit and lockdown was a thing and suddenly everybody had to work remotely, they already had the processes in place. So they just carried on.
Yeah, I think there's an element of when, you know, the introduction of things like Teams that Microsoft have brought in, that Teams is there available. So documents are all available for people. It just makes it makes it easier. I mean, whatever we do in business, right, we want to make it as easy and as cost effective as we can. So I think looking at things like that, it you know, allows change, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. And if it, I guess there's often a parallel there, that we're trying to make things as simple and as easy and processes as straightforward as we can, because that's how you make money in business. But also the secondary impact of that is that it does improve what you're doing on a kind of sustainability perspective.
I suppose it's easy when the sustainable option is also the most efficient and the best for business. But what happens when the two things collide, so that the most sustainable option is the least effective in terms of making profits? So I think then you're into this is what I wanted to talk about. Like, then what happens?
I'm not sure that I've come across that, and it's a really interesting. I'm sure it is out there, but the only businesses I can think of where that's a thing are businesses that probably need to look at what they're doing anyway. You know, you could look at
Mm.
maybe the motor industry. And over the last few months, the massive change, the switch in public perception to electric vehicles. And yeah, we know electric vehicles aren't perfect, and you've got to make them, and there's some issues with mining for rare materials to make electric cars and the batteries that were. But in effect, an electric car has a much smaller footprint than a fossil fuel driven car. And it's only maybe if you're trying to promote the other stuff that
Yeah.
maybe the sustainable option isn't the best one financially.
I think I just wonder, so that there's quite often an up for a small business operator like we are at SiGNAL, like
Yep.
you are at Ethical Growth Marketing, and the upfront cost, for example, of moving your fleet over to electric is huge. So at that point, you know,
Yep.
you've got to make some sort of decisions around whether you're going to be in profit for the year, or whether you're going to make these decisions that will in the long term help. And I understand that electric vehicles, and I've got one myself, I understand that in the long term they're much better for everybody and cheaper, but the upfront cost can be hard for businesses.
Yes, absolutely. But again, I think there are more and more people who are fully aware of that, and there are companies out there looking at month by month leasing for electric vehicles. And obviously it's just one thing. I mean, I've got an electric car parked outside. I absolutely love it, and you know, I was a bit of a petrol head, and it took me a while to get to that decision, but I just adore it, and I wouldn't go back now at all. And I think that, you know, a lot of the things we think are what we want are just things that we've got really used to.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe when you embrace that change, you actually realise that it's better anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I hope so, and I feel like there's, you know, we used to be in a world where business had a reputation for being selfish and greedy and profits driven, and you know, awful stories about businesses, you know, wasting huge amounts of the Amazon, or you know, generally other environmental disasters caused by business. And now we're in an era of B Corp, where business with a conscience, where somehow we have this sort of measurable ethical component of every business, like almost like another thing that's driving people forwards that isn't profit. So a really massive transformation, I think.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm possibly a little more cynical than you. Don't get me wrong, I love the B Corp movement, and I think that there is definitely a huge move towards being more transparent and more open about what you do and how you do it, and the impact that you have on the world around you, whether that's people or planet or even just financially. But I think we're scratching the surface. I think that, you know, there's an awful lot of greenwashing going on out there, and I think that it's kind of our duty to support the people who are doing it well. And I think that over time that we'll see that maybe that's the most sustainable approach from a financial perspective as well. And there's plenty of surveys being done out there saying, looking at the younger generation, so look at the millennials and Gen Z, are much more likely to spend money with a company that they can see is actually doing some good and having a positive impact in the world, whether that's sustainability environmentally, or whether it's actually going out and helping poorer communities, whatever it is. And I think some of the big companies are starting to cotton on to this. You look at some of the work that Microsoft and AWS are trying to do to reduce the impact of their cloud services. I've worked very closely with Microsoft in the past, and some of the stuff they were doing is absolutely amazing. You know, they've got teams out there building safe cooking stove for people, for poor communities and families in Kenya. And they don't really make a big song and dance about this, but they really should. And I think a lot of the time people do that too. How many companies will do charitable donations because it's actually from a tax perspective in their interests to do that, but then don't talk about it. And the fact is that maybe they started off doing it through selfish reasons, but you know, it is having a positive impact. And I think about that is a good thing, right?
I mean, I think based on that, do you think businesses should be held to account as to what they're doing and why they're doing it? I mean, I think if the big boys are doing it, should be shouting about it. It'll encourage others to do it. I mean, is there a question on that?
Yeah, there's certainly a discussion to be had. I don't like the idea of people being held to account in a formal sense. I'm a firm believer in the free market economy and allowing people to choose who they want to do business with. And people are free to do business in any way they choose. And I think that as long as we can be transparent about what we're doing and honest about it, then people will gravitate towards the companies and the organizations that are doing good. But, you know, there's an almost sort of a classist thing going on here. There's a real privilege to being able to make the most sustainable choice. And sometimes people aren't in that situation. Yeah. Especially at the moment with COVID and the cost of living shooting through the roof. You know, it's great if you can use a bar soap that doesn't come in a plastic bottle, but that's going to cost you twice as much as buying the cheap bottle of washing up liquid from the local supermarket. So, you know, there's an impact on you personally and your family for making those decisions. So I guess it's...
That comes back to interventions by government as well, though, doesn't it? Because if the government were to put, I don't know, more of a packaging tax on companies and so on, then we would be able to make a cheap and a sustainable choice, perhaps more often.
I think that I would be very happy to see at a kind of a national level incentives for businesses to do the right thing. And I'm much more a fan of leading with. I'm much more of a carrot than a stick kind of person.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that also lends itself to there needs to be a lot more education about it, and that I think is what is lacking. Education on what you can do and the impact, small baby steps as to what you can achieve. And I think that's the piece that's missing, because you know, people often hold their hands up and like, I don't know what I can do, and I'm doing my best, but I don't know what I can do. And it's that education piece. Is there any direction that you can, we can point people to get some kind of education on this?
Well, do you know what? I mean, it is really difficult. I think more and more people are talking about it, and there isn't really a kind of a one source of truth out there. But I think that the most important thing that people need to understand is that it's a journey, and it's the journey that matters. It's not. There isn't a specific destination in mind where we can get to and just go, great, we're doing it. Everything's fine now. You know, the fact is that we want to leave the world a better place than we found it. And the whole idea of sustainability is to try and meet the needs of today without damaging the ability of people to meet the needs of tomorrow. And I guess that I think all I would want is for more people to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's happening more and more. I mean, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. If you're out there and you want to connect, please do find me on LinkedIn, send me a request. Love to connect.
Great, the conversation.
Well, absolutely. Yes. And there's a lot of conversations out there. There's always a risk that you find yourself stuck in a little echo chamber with a few other people that feel the same way. And you think, oh, great, the world's changing. And in actual fact, it isn't. But I genuinely think there is a bit of a sea change in how people see these things.
There's a really good podcast, speaking of education, which is a Deborah Meaden. I want to call it the Green Money Machine, but I might be slightly wrong on that.
But I'm a huge fan of hers, and she's done some amazing work. So yeah, great. Yeah. I'll check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put a link on this video, or I'll ask somebody to sort that out so that we can see whoever's watching this can find that link. It's good, worth listening.
Good. Going on to how do you measure your success then, Oz?
Okay. You would have thought as a marketer that I would have means of measuring success quite likely, but I really don't. I have two kind of goals in life, and I use them as a measure of success. They're a bit vague. Effectively, I want to be able to sleep at night without worrying about what I'm doing, without feeling guilty about what it is I'm doing. And I want to get up in the morning excited to do it again. And
well, that doesn't sound very vague to me at all, Oz. That
well, I mean, it's hard to know how to measure it, though, isn't it? I mean, I can say, everything's okay. I don't have any clients that I wouldn't be happy to tell people about. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But you know, the fact is, you've still got to pay the bills. So I think just like everything, there's always a compromise to be made. But yeah, if I can sleep at night and I'm happy to go to work, then that I consider that a success, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think that's
I think it's really, and I think a lot of people that will be watching this today will be sort of like, you know what, actually that makes perfect sense, that work-life balance, you know, in a small business especially, and you know, we all run small businesses. I mean, you know, you've got every hat under the sun, haven't you? And you're just, you know, today I'm accounts, tomorrow I'm HR, tomorrow, you know, the next day I'm marketing. I mean, we all do so much when you know, when it's just you. And you know, I think that's a really good goal to have, in a sense of, you know, you should be able to sleep at night, and you know, you should wake up excited. I think they're very true goals.
Brilliant.
Great. I think my takeaway from what you said there, Oz, just to sort of wrap this thing up, is that it's great to think that there is literally nothing that you could do that would positively impact your community and your environment that wouldn't also have a positive impact on your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very much so. And I think that maybe the thing to change is that we don't really talk about it, and maybe that's just a British thing, that we don't like to talk about how well we're doing. Oh, I did this amazing thing, everybody look at me. We do, you know, tend to shy away from that. And I think that as a business owner, you've got to maybe step away from that and say it's okay to do something positive, and then tell everyone about it. Because, you know, I mean, what better marketing is there out there? You know, everyone's got competition. And if somebody comes along and looks at what you're doing and says, okay, who do I pick out of these two companies that are both local, they're both offering a similar service, they're both similarly priced, these people are doing something really nice and doing something good, that's who I want to work with.
And it's a good idea, isn't it, to have something on your website, and you don't have to shout about it on social media necessarily if that's not your style, but on your website you can just have a page that just says these are the ways we help, and
absolutely,
that's it. You don't, that's just sits there, so people, if they want to find it out, they can.
We do at the Biz Hub, we do a Biz Hub win, and we encourage people to at our meetings to put their hand up and say, this has been my win this week, however big, however small, personal, business, it doesn't matter. But you're quite right. I think we do need to celebrate our wins, because we just don't. We have a win and then we go on to the next thing and think, actually, I didn't celebrate that win, that was a great win. We don't pat ourselves, you know, on the back enough. So yeah, I think it's really key and important.
Absolutely.
Really good. So I think what we're going to do now, Lou, I'm not keeping an eye on the time, but I'm sure you are, but I think we're going to move on to the quick fire questions for Oz.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay. Where we ask you. Okay. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Well, do you know what? I would have always said I was a night owl. I always was as a teenager, but I've got 4 kids in the house. The youngest of whom is a lockdown baby, she's 2. So I am very much an early morning person these days. And
if not all night, I imagine sometimes.
No, I try and sleep in, just doesn't happen. I've got so used to getting up at 6:30 in the morning that that's just where I am now. So yeah, definitely mornings now.
Morning.
Sadly.
Do you know, sometimes, you know, you get up early in the morning and you have that quiet time and you think, I'll just bash out a load of emails and da-da-da. But there are so many people that are early birds now that you do the email and they come straight back at you. We're like, no.
Absolutely.
I've bounced the ball to you for at least a couple of hours and they come straight back at you. So there's a lot of early birds out there.
The next one is a cat or dog?
Dog.
Definitely dog. And I've got favourite biscuit here. What's your favourite biscuit?
That's that. Probably I'm a bit of a ginger nut person. So just a good ginger nut.
Do you like ginger nut with
just a little bit of bite to it.
Yeah, a little bit of spice.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. What's your best piece of business advice?
I think the best piece of advice that I could give to anybody that was either running or looking at running a business is not to be afraid of asking for help, even if it's just advice. You know, there are things that you will do really well and there are things that you will do really badly, and it's okay to get other people to help you with the stuff you can't do. Or if you're struggling, you know, tell people, because everybody's happy to help as a general rule of thumb. You meet some amazing people and you build some amazing relationships. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Brilliant. We're a firm believer of that. There's a really good strap line of SiGNAL. We say nobody can build a business alone. And
absolutely.
I think it's quite
couldn't agree
apparent.
more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's it. I think I've got one more that I'd like to ask you, because you're in the marketing. Your favourite business app?
It's probably not one that's going to ring any bells for you, but there's an app called frame.io, which is a video sharing platform, which, because I make a lot of videos for people, and rather than how I used to do it was I'd make a video, I'd upload it to Google Drive, I'd send someone a link, they'd download it, they'd go through it, they'd send the revisions back over and go through it. This allows you to watch a video and make notes with timestamps on as you watch it. So I can then go and say, right, those are the changes you want, do it. It speeds the whole process up so much, and I love it.
Brilliant.
Frame.io, we'll remember that one.
Yep.
Share it with our community. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us, Oz.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we can get you along to one of our events so people can meet you. And obviously we encourage everybody to link in with you, because obviously, you know, there's lots of communities out there. And if you can point at least one person in the right direction, it's always good, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if anybody just wants to chat and a coffee, just let me know. I'm always very happy to meet interesting people. And if I can help, great.
Great.
You've got some great videos, haven't you, on your LinkedIn profile as well? So I would really encourage
there are a few. There's a
look.
range of videos there. Some are helpful, some are just silly.
Perfect. All right, well, lovely.
Thank you very much once again. And yeah, that's it from today. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We've really enjoyed your company, and hopefully we will see you all at our next BizHub event. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.